or afternoon, whatever it may be. Welcome to today's session of the Rutland Regional Planning Commission Executive Finance Committee. Today, Monday, March 9th, 2026. We're starting at 5:31, I suppose, to call meeting to order. Do we need introductions? I think we all know each other. It's nice to see we got a full house. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Crazy season's over.
Let's move on to approve the agenda for today. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I see Bob's hand up. I see Larry's hand up. Maybe I can't hear you. I can see you. That's good for me. All in favor to approve the agenda, please say aye. Or raise your hand. Aye. Sounds unanimous. Agenda is approved. Moving on to approve the February 9th minutes. Did everyone get a chance to take a quick look at them? And are there any need for changes? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 9th, 2026.
I guess there were.
You know what? There were no minutes posted.
Yeah.
I remember now because I looked for them this afternoon.
Minutes. Yeah, so it should be 1 second.
So you want to post them or should we put it off till next time?
No, remember we didn't have a quorum, so the minutes will be from the January meeting.
Yeah, the previous meeting.
Oh, that's what I was wondering if that happened.
Yep, so let me just look at the.
Yeah, exactly. So minutes of January 12th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 12th.
Oh, January 12th. Thank you, Dave. Thanks, second, Bob. All in favor to approve the minutes of January 12th, 2026, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Minutes are approved and open to the public, but I see none, so close to the public. And next on the agenda is the January 26 financials. Devin, are you presenting those?
Yep. I'll share my screen in just a minute. So we finished those up today. That's why I didn't send them out. I figured you guys would be here, so we just jump into them. A couple of highlights before I share my screen. Nothing new to report. Sort of the same areas are high for the same reasons we reviewed last time. But the January P&L does reflect a net income of roughly 135,000, and that's high relative due to the third quarter ACCD invoice being captured in December. So that third quarter takes us, starts in January, takes us through the quarter. The local income is high due to the member dues. ACCD is high. Environmental DEC 403.5 is high. That's due to that huge Fairhaven invoice, 260,000 that was paid. Let's see. Department of Labor still is kind of low because we're still ramping up there. And special projects is a little low. One of the reasons is Barbara had a project that we have sort of tabled for now, and we'll pick back up when we have a planner. Expense side, rent's a little high because we paid it early. Everything else is very regular. One thing on the balance sheet, which we'll show you in a minute, key bank checking has decreased significantly just because that account pays for the QUIS funds. So when we have a big payment, it goes out quickly. In terms of accounts receivable, as of 1/31/2026, accounts receivable totaled 598,000. Of that, roughly 7,700 was QUIS reimbursement. As of today, that accounts receivable is 341,000. So I'll just share my screen quickly. So some of those high numbers, local income, town dues, environmental conservation, that big payout. But otherwise, we're looking pretty good and pretty on track right now. If you have any questions or want to look at any specific lines, happy to do so. Bigger thing on the budget side, this year's just been kind of between being down 3 planners and, regional plan work. It's just been a wonky year. So we haven't done our cash projection yet that we typically do earlier in the winter. We're working on that now. So we'll have a really good idea of where we're going to land. Typically, we've done that budget adjustment the last 3-4 years in January to try to realign what we propose with what are the actuals. Again, we have not done that yet. It remains to be seen whether we need to do that. There's a possibility where we could come back with a updated budget in April, May. That's basically like here the last couple of months just to realign. But until we have this cash flow projection, we just don't really know quite yet where we're at. It's like I said, this one's throwing us for a little bit of a loop, but given that payroll is so low because we're missing 3 planners, income is a little low because we're missing those planners, we just don't know where we're quite at right now. But my spider sense is telling me that we're pretty close to where we need to be. Revenue will be down, but expenses will be down as well. Any questions there?
Cost receivable, 300,000, is that sound right, or is it a little bit?
It's a little bit higher
yeah.
than normal, but it's a lot of that is to do with where things are at in the billing as well. So like we're doing a bunch of deliverable based agreements for our road erosion inventories. There's one big chunk that won't necessarily show up that's out there. So let me just see if there was another no. Just gonna look at that aging summary one more time here. See where the big drivers are. Yeah, it's a lot of these are road erosion inventories are big ones because we're unable to invoice until the work has been completed. Because they're deliverable based, and then the QUISP. So QUISP, there's 146,000 just right there. And then the rest are pretty small dollar. V-Trans, 47,000 hanging out there. They're just experiencing some capacity issues, so we've invoiced for 2 months that have not been paid. But a lot of these are within the 1 to 60 day range, so we'll probably see cash pretty soon.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any further questions for Devin on the financials?
Nope.
Let's move on. Executive Director's report. Devin, you're up again.
Yeah. Okay. So some good news. Finally, we have made a hire. I mean,
Oh, yay.
I can't tell you. It's been so interesting. I've hired a lot of people since I've been here for such a short amount of time, right? More than I would have liked. And through that whole hiring time, from the time I started until now, we have not really gotten the volume of candidates, but when you get one and you make an offer, it always goes through. I have had 4 or 5 different instances through this period where I have gone through the interview process, I have vetted the candidate, we had a mutual understanding, and I made the offer and it wasn't accepted. And to go through those lengths and be sort of dead-ended, it's been frustrating, I won't lie, and it's been multiple times. And the reasons vary. A lot of it has to do with honestly the the location. Like,
Housing situation and
Yeah.
relocating.
Factor in.
I think that's a factor, no doubt, but you know, we are we are requiring people to generally live here. And a couple instances, it was all good to go, and then they're like, actually, I've talked to my wife and she doesn't want to move, or, you know, it was this scenario or that scenario, so, I just have not experienced that before. Especially since it's something I am upfront with immediately in the process to be like, hey, we are asking you to relocate. You know, in the interview side, they're always like, yeah, no problem.
Right.
But then when
Right. When
Push
push
come-
comes to shove.
yeah, that gets a little bit different of a response. But I'm not gonna share because we're recorded who this candidate is because they have to announce to their employer, but they are local and they are somebody you all are aware of. So I'm very excited for that fact. They know the region, they've been proven, and they will be taking over for Logan's former position. So that's been good.
Great.
They'll be starting on April 6th, so we'll have a little bit more town planning capacity. We have strong candidates in interviews in the other two areas, one of which I'm really excited about. I have an interview on Thursday. We'll see. I'll just keep going as much as I can until we fill those next two positions. That being said, this time without these positions has given me the teeniest little bit capacity in the brain space to think about, is this the right structure for the position? Like, should these planners be doing the things that the previous planners were? Should it just be
Right.
this sort of like plug and place replacement? And my answer is no. And that I think this is an opportunity to sort of shake up the deck a little bit. And I'm feeling generally that we are lacking capacity in the town planning and zoning program, that we need to sort of go back to our core roots of planning first and then all the other stuff after. And I think because of how the nature of RPCs are funded and the state of Vermont, how they operate implementing through RPCs, we've been doing more of the sort of other stuff like DEC programming or FEMA or whoever else. So, you know, we still have the same objectives, the same programs. However, how we sort of cut those up and divvy them out, I think there's an opportunity here. Not only that, but what I'm excited to report about budget-wise is I shared with you all the property transfer tax is down. So we're actually getting a reduction in the Budget Adjustment Act. The mid-year adjustment reduced our base funding. It's not a lot, right? It's $100,000 statewide. So for us, it's less than $10,000. But still, it's not great for confidence building with the next year's budget, which is kind of a question mark. That being said, the governor, despite the situation we're in, has included a nearly 3% increase in our base funding over last year's initial funding, which we were right on the edge of being able to bring in one more planner. I think between bringing in newer planners with lower salaries than those that left, and this 3% increase, I think we can bring in one more planner, which that is where I want to increase the capacity, is have 3 planners that are really dedicated to town planning, zoning, subdivisions, and basically whatever the town sort of needs. Because we aren't as good as we used to be at accepting random requests. We just don't have, with the regional plan and everything else, flexibility built in. We're sort of like every planner's at capacity. So when Shrewsbury or Wallingford are like, hey, we have this special project, and actually it happened in Shrewsbury recently where I think it was a member of your conservation commission is doing some roadside tree inventory work.
Shade tree, yeah.
Yeah, and we had to say no, that we didn't have the capacity to help them do this project. And I hate saying no. And I think it limits our ability to all the co-benefits of doing this work outside of traditional projects and programs is so valuable. So my hope is through this all is to sort of reshape these programs around the person we get versus just say, hey, you're doing all these things that this other person was doing before, despite what their qualifications or history or experience is. And on top of that, bring in one more planner. So we have 3 basically dedicated planning commission type planners. So that means I've got to add one more hire to this list, but what's the harm now? We got so many to do, we might as well. So I'm feeling really excited about one that we did get. The other 2, we reposted the job last Friday, and already today I had a ton of applicants. I already have more interviews scheduled. So it's not the volume, it's just like finding the right one at the right time. And that despite running myself ragged and trying to fill all these gaps myself, I would rather wait and make sure they're right and going to be here for a while versus onboarding the wrong person, going through a protracted issues and separation, and then being right back in the same position we're in now. So
When you post and repost, where's this go? How
Yeah.
far, how far out do you reach and
yeah, national.
national?
Yep. So we use like 6 or 7 different job boards. You know, the basic ones like Indeed, right? But then we're using Handshake, which connects you to like recent college and graduate students. We're using the APA and a couple planning listservs. We're using some local resources as well, some paid, some unpaid, depending on the situation. So, and then surprisingly, I've tapped my cohorts and throughout Vermont to be like, hey, we are struggling, can you help? And they have helped quite a bit. And because of how disparate and unconnected Vermont is generally, like we don't have like universal warehouse job boards here that other states do. The word of mouth has been helpful. You know, the planner we did hire was word of mouth. So I try not to discredit that too. LinkedIn has been a big one for us. So we will see. More to come, but this is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, which is exciting.
You ever kind of get up when you get the applicants, filter them out? Like, the reason I say that, so like a couple times when I've been on this board, when I hired executive director, it was a nationwide search. And so the first time we got applicants from all over, and you're looking at the resume and why would you want to come here? You know, you're going to take a salary cut. You may not have put the salary in, it might say negotiable. They're in California and you're saying, wow, this is like over the top. And the lesson we learned is a lot of these, they'll just apply for the position to see how far they get.
Or in one case, for me, I'm pretty sure the offer was leveraged
Yeah.
into it.
And then when they get down to the final 5, they were not interested to begin with. And then when you set up an interview, all of a sudden you get that we've decided.
Yes.
To go elsewhere.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the second time round, you know, was a learning lesson for us.
Yeah, so a lot of pre-filtering. I mean, the number of applicants versus interviews is pretty heavily weighed towards applicants. So I'll keep you guys posted. But as of right now, at least we have one.
Good.
Yeah, very excited. In other news, I have been asked to put my name in the hat to join the NATO board, the National Association of Development Organizations. They're the ones who did our big like VAPTA surveys and assessment last year that you all took a part of. Vermont has traditionally had a really outsized influence on NATO. Currently, Charlie Baker and Peter Gregory, 2 of my counterparts in Chittenden and Woodstock, serve on the board and have even been president of that board in the past. So, you know, I have to be nominated. So I would like to ask Laura as chair to write that nomination letter. It's canned. But I want to put that all out to you all as, do you think it's worth my time to do this. It's a couple times a year. I think it's once in person in DC and then the rest are remote. But it's a connection to congressional delegation and just sort of national players that could prove beneficial to BAPTA and Rutland RPC. So I wanted to float that out there as like, do you guys have any red flags? Do you think it would be a good idea? And if so, you know, going through the process of writing this letter and submitting, they still have to, it's like applying.
Well, I don't have any red flags. I know both those guys, Charlie Baker and Peter Anthony, and I think highly of, I know Charlie better and
Yeah.
think very highly of them. And I'm sure they did it because it would benefit their, you know,
Their
organizations themselves.
Yeah.
And Charlie's been up in Chittenden County now for
Long time.
a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it would be beneficial anytime you can make those kind of connections.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're the two who suggested I do it. And I think it's part of the sort of Baptist succession planning overall is like, who is gonna assume these kind of roles when they all retire?
Yep.
So
What do you want to do?
I think I want to do it. I want to try it out now. And Catherine Dimitrik from Northwest also I reached out to her. She's been on the board in a leadership position too. And she's like, honestly, if you're going to do it now while your son is a toddler, because I did it when they were little and I had to miss things that I didn't like when I went to DC. So she's like, if you want to do it now, which I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You know, while he's young and I'm not like missing sports events and whatever else, you know.
Okay, so that's the follow-up question. What does your wife think?
She's all for it. Yeah, I've talked to her about it. Yeah, because it's not a huge demand of time, but it, you know, it's more about like being in DC those times of year. So
What about Ira?
he babbled about it. So and then I didn't get a good translation on it, but
And what's the most important member?
yeah, currently sleeping. So well, no, she's awake. But yeah, if you guys think it's worthwhile, then
I just throw it back at you. You seem to think it's worthwhile, so.
I think so. Yeah. And I don't think we need any official action. None of the paperwork, it's just Laura signing letters. So Laura, if you're willing to do it,
As long
then
as Commissioner O'Leary's good with it, I'm.
Yeah.
It'll work,
Yeah.
right?
I'm
Well,
Commissioner
yes,
O'Leary today. I'm a lot of different things,
Yeah.
depending on which day it is.
Laura, you are the chair. What do you feel?
Oh, well, I don't know anything about Vado, but it sounds like you do, Devin, and you think it's worthwhile. And Dave, thanks for your input as well. Sounds like you know a bit about it and about the other members or heads of it. So I'd be
Yeah,
glad to sign the nomination letter, whatever, or if I need to draft it, sure,
no,
whatever.
I've got pre-written ones, so I won't give you any
Cool.
homework. Yeah.
Super easy.
And after this meeting, I'll send you guys just a quick follow-up with a link to show you like what is NATO, for anyone who's interested and isn't as aware
NATO.
of what they
What
do.
did I call it?
No, you called it NATO.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Other news,
changed my mind.
I'm doing a 2-part webinar series with Fish and Wildlife on Act 181 with Jens Hilke. Some of you know Jens pretty well. One will be Wednesday and one will be at the end of April. And other news, the UVM, 2 exciting things that we're working with UVM. One is the wastewater mapping project. So they're mapping all wastewater facilities and lines in Vermont. That we've never had that data. And considering it sort of underpins Act 181, this is really useful. So the draft map is out. I'm actually looking at it now. I'm not going to share it widely because it is still draft and there's some work to do on it. But it's super exciting to have this resource. And we initiated this through BAPTA. I'm hoping that we continue and immediately have them do the water line work as well. There have been issues making water infrastructure public in the past because of terrorism and the concerns about, you know, messing with public water and drinking water. However, I think there's a way for us to do it safely where it's still a planning resource that we can tap into, because I don't know how we're gonna build all this housing if we don't have this infrastructure well known for planning purposes. So that's one exciting thing. The other exciting UVM Leahy Institute work we're doing right now is the Masters of Public Administration group is doing a capstone project for regional governments, council on governments for us, because that group of legislators that were supposed to do it last year, when the mid biennium switched over and the leadership changed, it sort of got dropped. We're hearing more and more that this is a priority to figure out how to better and more efficiently create shared services, shared agreements, shared buying, shared staffing amongst towns. So we're asking this group of students in their capstone project to basically study and model a program that Vermont could potentially roll out. And we don't want another level of government. That's the last thing we want. This is about like service delivery only. So that's what they just started working on this month, is sort of rolling this out. And they only have until the end of their semester. So I think it will be an intense time for them to wrap this all up and get us something unique. But I'm so excited to have something actually tangibly useful, because a lot of the legislative studies up till now have just sort of glossed over it. And then when the legislature's given that study, they have nothing sort of tangible to weigh, right? No options, whether they can look at whether it will work, but not how to do it. And I think with what we're seeing with school consolidation is, without architecture, it's really hard to make any sort of real change. So I'm excited about that quite a bit. And as we get through the project, I'll share more and more. Right now, it's just at the very beginning stage. So that's kind of fun to know. Any questions on that stuff? I could keep going, but the rest of it we'll all cover in other stuff. So I think it's all program based from here on out. So I will cap it there if you guys are good with that.
Sounds good, Devin. Speak up if anyone has questions, or let's move on to regional plan report. Guess what, Devin?
Yeah.
You're up again.
Yeah, so this is the bigger part of the meeting. Well, maybe, but next week, it's our first public hearing. This is it. So we are like in the throes of full on adoption. We haven't been hearing a whole lot from every town, but we are hearing a lot from only a few towns, which is interesting. And actually Danby being one of them. So one thing I'm really concerned about is our draft map for the first public hearing changed a lot, right? So, again, just to reiterate, and where all these resources are available on our plan website. So at the public hearing, we're planning to present. Stephanie is going to do the presenting because everyone hears from me way too much. So she will present on the plan draft and the elements of the future land use map, and then go over sort of the landing page and where everyone can find everything. So hopefully you all have found it really easy to navigate between the memos that I've sent you guys and the public hearing notices through the webpage. So our first public hearing, all the information about that hearing next Tuesday is here on the landing page, including the draft plan itself. There's a download link. Our regional plan report is right below that. And then the full engagement report is below that. We didn't want to link and embed it into the plan because it just got too long. So those three things are sort of 3 of the 4 requirements. The last is the draft map. So if we open that draft, which I think I already have open. What's going on? Taking forever to draw. Hold on. Okay, here's where our map is currently at. My general feeling is that we maybe had a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to the LRRP's pre-application. And that we were the first ones through the door, right? And the LRRP had never done it before. And by the LRRP's own admission, because we've had many follow-up conversations, that maybe they were really testing their process, and their process evolution from the first plan to now they've just finished reviewing their 5th plan. Their pre-application response versus ours is significantly different. Much less, much more deference is given to the RPC now than it was when we were. And we sort of took that as gospel, right? We said, hey, the blurb is telling us we have to change this map. It doesn't meet statute. And the LRRP was really looking at it through pretty narrow lenses based on statute. Their interpretation was X based on what the statute said. They didn't want to venture. Now what we're hearing is, and what the LRRP is saying, well, we're considering more local input. We're considering local future land use maps. We're considering where towns maybe want to grow and see themselves grow more than just kind of strictly by the book. So this map compared to, sorry, where am I? I have all these same maps open. Eventually I'll get to it here.
This is on St. Patrick's Day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to seeing all the green here. That's.
Yes. So we made this handy comparison tool to show towns, because the change between the pre-application and the first public hearing was pretty significant. I mean, we can see it right here. Those are pretty different, right? And you can see the blocks are much more contiguous in our pre-application draft on the right than our first public hearing draft versus our pre-application draft. So what we learned, and we've gone over before, is there were certain elements that they didn't like, and they still don't like. So we know that those are no-goes. For instance, in the rural areas, all these 300-foot buffers we did around homes right here in our first draft, they said that doesn't meet the sort of methodology. We need you guys to do more parcel-based mapping. So you can see on the left or on the right screen, we tried to group them differently. And as a result, we tried to match it up with certain state level maps and layers that existed. For instance, highest priority forest blocks and wildlife corridors map 75% of the region as being conservation. So we kind of took that approach, and as a result, rural conservation went way up, rural general and agroforestry went way down. What we're hearing from towns overall, especially in this where like Danby comes in, is, and Danby and Benson have been the most vocal about this, and understandably so. There's a lot of concern from landowners for having their land mapped as rural conservation. Now, we know it doesn't mean any difference between rural, ag, forestry, general, and conservation as it relates to Act 250. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold here. However, there's a lot of concern about it, what it could mean in the future. There's a lot of angst that, hey, you're limiting my ability to use my land and you're going to control it. And this narrative has spiraled out of control in a couple towns. Danby is one. I have gotten calls from landowners in Danby who are trying to sell their land, and the buyer won't purchase the land because it's tentatively mapped as conservation. And they think their ability to even sell the land or buy it is won't be allowed. And if they do buy it, they won't be allowed to do anything with it. So we have work to do to try to reach these folks and educate them to say, that's not what this is a planning map. You either are under Act 250 or you're not, and it doesn't matter what color you fall under, and that's what this map is about. And that really, it's laying out priorities for the future. We're saying, this land is highly valuable for conservation. If you so choose to conserve it in the future, this would be a high priority. If you don't, that is completely up to you. That messaging is not landing
Yeah.
at
it's
all.
Not at all.
It's not at all. So what we would like to do, and what we've already done, and we're almost done with it, is take the lessons we learned from the LRRP about what is acceptable and what is not, but try to go back to that original map that everyone liked and agreed upon. You know, the map on the left, the pre-application map, we had broad consensus from every town. It wasn't perfect, but folks were okay with it. And redraft a new map strictly following the BAPTA methodology. So there's no question whether it's, you know, subjective or objective. It is totally objective, and try to rebalance the equation. So we have done that. And we will have a whole new map that we want to release after the first public hearing. But the issue now we're sort of feeling is that we'll now have 3 different maps, and the third and final map will be the one that is adopted. And I just feel like it's a bit of do-si-do for some of the towns to keep up. And I think us having this bit of a knee-jerk reaction and total overhaul in the first public hearing draft may have been a wrong decision. It was something, you know, at the time we didn't know any better. It's all the information we had to go on. So this is not at all ready for public consumption, but this is where we're landing. This would be the new draft of the future land use map that sort of splits the difference and has much less rural conservation, a lot more rural ag and forestry, and about the same amount of rural general. So this, I think, splits the difference really, really well and addresses a lot of the concerns we've been hearing while still meeting all the LRRP's requirements.
It will fly with
It will fly with the LRRP. And to ensure that it flies with the LRRP, because in addition to doing this work, the sort of full map overhaul, RRPC recently went back to the LRRP and said, hey, they were the second map through the door. They said, hey, when you guys reviewed, where's that? Reviewed our first draft, the LRRP eliminated, just like us, all these areas said no, they won't fly. So the RRPC recently went back to the LRRP and said, we want a second chance at expanding our Tier 1B eligible areas in these specific zones, and provided justification to them as the reason for those changes. We are planning to do the same thing. So Fairhaven's a great example. Look how much Tier 1B eligible areas, the pink, was lost between draft 1 and 2. We went from 2.5% of the region down to 2% of the region for Tier 1B eligibility. We would like to go back and say, okay, we know now that, for instance, this whole area is eligible. There's water and sewer there. We can make a strong case for it. Same with like their mobile home park right here. We know the town wants to do stuff with it. It's got water and sewer. Let's go back and try to make the case for it. So there's several instances in Fairhaven, Castleton, a little bit of Pulteney, Pittsford, Brandon, where we want to go back to LRRP and say, hey, we think you guys should reconsider adding these areas back in. At the same time, we'll have them review that full draft again. So it's a long-winded way to say, expect another map revision to come between the first public hearing and the final public hearing. I think it's going to require pretty strong and consistent messaging from us. However, despite all these changes and the opportunities we have provided, we're really not hearing a lot from the towns right now. And my strong suspicion, and I'd love to hear if you guys are hearing otherwise in your communities, is that there's just a lot of fatigue from towns right now, that we've been at this now for 3 years, and they're sort of like, okay, how many times are you gonna keep asking us for input? How many times do we have to keep doing this? And I think there's some interest in just kind of moving forward. That being said, we know that there's a lot of angst out there around tier 3 and the road rule, and rightfully so. And so trying to keep ourselves differentiated from that process, because it's not this map, while making sure the map is right, that is our ultimate goal. Like, making sure this map is right and we're affording every possible opportunity for the region that we can. And that's why we're trying to fight for these tier 1B areas to be included back in. You know, even Rutland City, we're trying to parcel by parcel. I worked with Ed a little bit. He's like, can we add these couple, like Loretta Home wasn't in. Let's add that back in. So, you know, it's primarily in those medium and larger sized towns where we'll be adding these areas back in. But I wanted you guys to be aware that we are drafting another map. And I know I had mentioned this before, that that was the plan, but we actually have done it. And we're putting a lot of time and resources in to do it. It's just, you know, we can't possibly, with 27 towns,
Make everybody happy.
make everybody happy. And I would love to be able to meet again with every single town. We don't have the capacity or the time to do that. And I'm not sure substantively between the first draft, this draft, and the next draft, tangibly what it means for Act 250 is very little between drafts, right? The pink areas are pretty much set, plus or minus a few parcels here and there. So there's a lot of education we need to still do, despite our best efforts to do it up till now. So yeah, any feedback or thoughts that you all have, I would love to hear it, because we're sort of in the throes of it now, you know. And I think next week will be telling. The one other thing I'll mention is our supplemental hearings are scheduled. So we have one, we're only required to have one public hearing, right? And we felt like that was not enough. So on March 19, we're going to Brandon. On March 24th, we're going to Wallingford. On March 26th, we're going to Poultney, and offering 3 more opportunities for folks to weigh in, learn about the process, and try to gather as much input and awareness as we can, or gather input and generate awareness. So between the drafts, we don't have much time, right? So basically we're saying, hey, no more comments after March 30th. Our warning for the final public hearing is April 16th. So it's only a couple weeks in between. We are not expecting to have to do many changes to the plan itself. I think the plan is pretty well set. It's this map that we still will need to tweak. So, Drea, Laura, do you guys have thoughts, questions about all this?
No, it's just a lot of information, and what I've heard also a lot from people regarding the plan is also their concerns around Act 181.
Yeah, what specifically? Like what I was saying earlier?
Yeah, about the restrictions on the land, and a lot of people just concerned with how 181 reaches further than 250 about what people can and can't do.
Yeah. And that, honestly, Drea, that has been our ultimate challenge, is differentiating this map from the road rule in tier 3 has just been impossible. It doesn't matter how many times you say it or how you say it. The one saving grace is, I can tell you, we have been working really closely with the Rural Caucus and Senate Natural and Senate Economic Development on a draft bill that's literally out right now. I'll get you the number. I'll send you guys the draft bill after this meeting, that looks to postpone the road rule in tier 3 for a full extra
Yeah.
year.
It's in the house.
I was gonna mention
It's
that.
now in the house,
Yeah.
yep, and I think the
Right.
goal for some members is use that time to maybe get rid of it altogether. That repealing the road rule or tier 3 is
may
the
happen.
ultimate goal during that period. Now, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's gonna happen. That's a major concession that the NRC and some of those folks are gonna have to make that happen. I personally feel at this point, and I was really hesitant to even weigh in the past, but we do not need both. The road rule in tier 3 feels extremely redundant, and that the road rule is a sort of a shotgun approach that covers 98% of Vermont, and then tier 3 is this very surgical mapping. And it's like, why do we need both of those? Get rid of the road rule and stick with the surgical mapping, because you're actually protecting the resources that matter. And I think that would alleviate a lot of stress from folks, because I can tell you, like, there's a great article over the weekend, I'm sure some of you saw it. This woman from up north wrote a long response, open letter to the legislature about how her family.
Stop. Are you talking about
Did you-
Eliza?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That was really, really good. And it was so plainly written and non-political that you're killing rural Vermont, and any of our value is held in land, and you're restricting our ability to extract value out of that land. And I think she's got a very good point in that this is starting to feel, now that the mapping is out there, and I'll show you guys, like, the mapping, there's 6 regions now that have their maps up. So we can start to see how the states stitch together. Bear with me for a second. Remember, it was just us on this lonely map when we started? Now, look at, there's a lot stitched together. And if we were to eliminate Chittenden County and start to look, that's Mount Ascutney's region. Other than Springfield and Chester and Ludlow, not, a lot of rural. Our region outside of really Rutland and our medium-sized towns, not much. Addison County, same thing, Virgins, Bristol, Middlebury, but outside of that, not much. Lamoille County, very little outside of Stowe and Morristown. And then same with Northwest, really St. Albans, a little tiny bit of Enosburg, but I feel like it was pitched as a way to really encourage growth and balance growth and conservation, but it feels like for some communities, there is no benefit, there's only a loss. And that doesn't seem very fair. So either way, that legislation hopefully will go through because it makes some significant changes to allow us to do things easier, like streamlining our amendment process, making the enhanced energy plan part of the same adoption process, clarifying a bunch of language. So very simple changes that at first, when we started the session, looked impossible. Like no one wanted to open up Act 20B1, but there's a movement now. People are like, okay, let's do it. So.
And a couple articles in the paper, you've probably seen them about.
Yep.
Exactly what you're talking about. And getting into the legislature, there were some that wanted to let it play out for a year or two and then
Yeah.
adjust it versus. Tackling it now,
Yeah.
and will this make the crossover?
Yeah, it was very late to make
It's
crossover,
late.
but it's looking good.
It's
It's
looking
looking like,
good.
yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about next week, a little nervous, this could be a half-hour hearing, could be an hour, we could have one person,
Yeah.
we could have 50 people, I just don't know what to expect.
Tell them afterwards, they can all go to the Hobbit Moose and see what happens.
Yeah.
It is St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, you're very right. You're very right. So, well, thank you all. Just whenever you hear anything, have questions, let me know.
This came up at the Mendon town meeting,
Mhm.
and so I won't say the person's name, but they came up, and as soon as I heard Rutland Regional Planning Commission and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I stood up and, basically described the whole thing, how, Act 181, it's a law interpreted by the LRB board, and there wasn't any flexibility. So I said, don't blame Rutland Regional Planning Commission. They went to every select board and basically tried to map out what the legislative body in that town wanted.
Yeah, we had a lot of activity.
Yeah, and then
A
LRB
lot.
came back and,
Mhm.
Yeah.
And in Mendon, the Lurb's case, it wasn't too directed at Mendon. I think the thing that probably impacted Mendon the most would have been losing those 300-foot rural general buffers, but
Right.
again, it doesn't really mean
it
anything.
doesn't,
for
yeah,
Act
people
250.
don't understand that.
They don't. No, it doesn't.
And
Those-
the other
it's
thing in the
complicated.
article said it's still too new, Act 181. Lawyers haven't really had time to even look at this yet.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not been battle tested at all.
No.
So.
Oh, it's gotta be bad if the lawyers haven't looked at it.
Yeah, yeah, as soon as they dig in, they're
It'll
gonna,
probably be a whole new
yeah, a
like,
whole new interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
For
It's
sure.
ambiguous.
yeah. I'm feeling pretty confident overall. Like we've done a lot of work up to this point. That is not lost. And I get people's anxieties. I'm trying to be very empathetic because it is confusing and I don't expect the average person to know a 200-page law. It's just, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So, all right. Anything else there? We'll see how next week goes. We'll try to keep in terms of the next March Board of Commissioners agenda, gonna try to keep it really, really light. Because this is really gonna dominate the meeting, so I'm not gonna try to schedule anything else. In terms of regional committee, I don't think we're gonna need to have a meeting, which would be great, but I will double check. The one
Okay.
application that has been submitted that we really need to spend time on is Walmart. That was submitted.
Oh.
That being said, it's incomplete, so I don't really want to spend time on an application that's incomplete. I doubt it will last very long. There's not a ton of information that they need to fix, but I do know that that is one that probably require a little bit more review than others, considering the impact. But otherwise, if we feel like we can hold off, I don't have any other Section 248 applications or anything else for this month. So
And then telecommunications going up in East Wallingford I haven't heard anything on it either.
no, yeah, okay. Yeah, I did have a chance to sit down with Sandy recently
Yeah.
and ask about that. So
It might be moving to Mount Holly. There was somebody there that offered you can move it over here.
really, because there already is one or two in Mount Holly already. Yeah. Alrighty, that's really all I have, Laura.
Okay, sounds like you covered the agenda, and
Yep.
next item is adjourn.
Good. Nothing for community either.
No, we will have a bunch of town plans. I don't know whether it'll be April or not, but we have a bunch that are on the horizon. The warnings make it tricky because we have to get it in the paper 20 days in advance. So if we don't get the adopted town plan 20 days in advance of our meeting, we can't issue the warning. So usually takes at least a month notice for us to get it done. So, all right.
Good.
Okay. Motion to adjourn,
no.
second, all in favor?
Let's
adjourn.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, see you next week.
Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Laura. Bye, Drea.
Bye.